Right, Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakakudash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of great millstone that rule well, laboring the word and doctrine, Shalom and in peace. May that be unto the elect of the nation of Israel. So we're going to start, it's a feast of dedication, or HANNUKAH. So we're going to start in Second Chronicles, chapter 2. We go from verse 1. Alright.
Second Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 1. And Solomon determined to build a house for the name of the Lord Yahweh, and a house for his kingdom. And Solomon told out 70,000 men to bear burdens, and fourscore thousand to hew in the mountain, and 3,600 to oversee them.
Now we understand right now at this time, the temple was first destroyed most recently destroyed in the 1st century AD, and now the Lord teaches us through his apostles that we are the temple. Know ye not that your body is the temple. So if you defile it, you're defiling the temple if you're defiling your body. But this is, symbolic, or it's a time in history that was necessary. So we're not trying to build them physical houses now. Also talks about in, I believe it's Acts, it said there's no house a man can build into the Lord, because the Heavenly Father built, the earth, the heavens, which is his footstool.
Verse 3. And Solomon sent to Hiram the king of Tyre, saying, As you did deal with David my father, and did send him cedars to build him a house to dwell therein, even so deal with me. Behold, I build a house to the name of the Lord Yahweh my power, to dedicate it to him, and to burn before him sweet incense, and for the continual showbread, and for the burnt offerings morning and evening, on the Sabbaths and on the new moons, and on the solemn feasts of the Lord Yahweh our power. This is an ordinance forever to Israel.
So that means that was establishing, a new form of worship, or a new time of worship, a feast of dedication. They did have one. My memory escapes when we're, struck for electrical devices. We don't have too many right now. Just the one on video. But there's a time that it talks about there was a feast of dedication in the summer, I believe. So it's not referring to this. That's why it's important. And when we're touching on, these feasts of dedication, we're getting it in the right context. Right, so there's a feast of dedication in Chronicles, but the one that we're focused on, and we always speak about the Gentiles, for example, that's a heavy part of the mysterion or the mystery of the gospel, teaching the true context, the true understanding on who the Gentiles are, because that's imperative to understand for the doctrine of salvation. There's only one doctrine that can lead into the way of life. People say that's discriminatory, or that's not fair, or that's not right, but that's the way of the Messiah. He taught there's only one way, to get to that heaven.
Verse 5. And the house which I build is great, for great is our power above all gods. But who is able to build him a house, seeing the heaven and heaven of heavens cannot contain him? Who am I then, that I should build him a house, save, meaning unless only to burn sacrifice before him? Send me now therefore a man cunning to work in gold, and in silver, and in brass, and in iron, and in purple, and crimson, and blue, and that can skill to grave with the cunning men that are with me in Judah and in Jerusalem, whom David my father did provide. Send me also cedar trees, fir trees, and all gum trees out of Lebanon, for I know that your servants can skill to cut timber in Lebanon, and behold, my servants shall be with your servants, even to prepare me timber in abundance, for the house which I am about to build shall be wonderful, great.
And then we'll skip down to 7th chapter, 2nd Chronicles chapter 7, and start verse 9. It says, And in the 8th day they made a solemn assembly. They kept the dedication of the altar 7 days, and the feast 7 days. And on the 23rd day of the 7th month, he sent the people away into their tents, glad and merry in heart, for the goodness that Yahweh had shewed unto David and to Solomon and to Israel his people. So we see, the dedication was a time in history. The temple was a time in history, and you have the two events: the abomination of desolation, which are dealing with the Greek and Roman Empire. There's two of them. The Messiah spoke on one of them, 70 AD, at a time to come. Obviously, the Hellenization period had taken place prior to the Messiah coming upon the scene in the flesh. But these are very important times in our history. Now we'll get into Second Maccabees with Bakusha. We can start from chapter 10, but then we'll sort of backtrack and we can go in a bit of history. Link that in. And it's such a heavy point in Israelitic, or what you say, how do you say, Hebrew Israelism. Our history as a people, the Israelites as a people, because that's when we were disconnected severely from their heritage. Killed, punished, put to death for circumcising their children, for example. Trying to keep a token of the covenant. It was brutal. It got brutal.
Second Maccabees chapter 10 and verse 1. Now Maccabeus and his company, the Lord guiding them, recovered the temple and the city, but the altars which the heathen had built in the open street and also the chapels they pulled down, and having cleansed the temple they made another altar, and striking stones they took fire out of them, and offered a sacrifice after 2 years, and set forth incense and lights and shewbread. When that was done, they fell flat down and besought the Lord that they might come no more into such troubles, but if they sinned any more against him, that he himself would chasten them with mercy, and that they might not be delivered unto the blasphemous and barbarous nations.
Specifically, that was dealing with the Hellenes, at that time, which came back and really, did in a lot of Israel. That was the great scattering, the falling away from our land. It speaks about that in the Thessalonians. So the point is, history repeats itself there. The little time of peace that we had was very little, under Solomon.
Verse 5. Now upon the same day that the strangers profaned the temple, on the very same day it was cleansed again, even the 25th day of the same month, which is Caslau.
Right, so
Or Caslu.
yeah. So that's the same day, as what the abomination of desolation, and that was prophesied. That's such a monumental part of our history that you have to be crazy to think that the third beast, that the Maccabee book is not, part of the canon. There's so much history in there that links and is supported by the so-called New Testament that, you gotta be studying it. You gotta be looking at that. It's a really significant chunk, to the point of where in the book of Romans, it doesn't say there's neither Jew nor Roman, but rather there's neither Jew nor Greek. Well, what happened in the Greek captivity that's so pivotal for the apostles to be discussing, Greeks in these epistles, when it's not even Greeks that are ruling that land at the time, it's the Romans. So you got to ask yourself, why would that be taken out?
Verse 6. And they kept 8 days with gladness, as in the feast of the tabernacles, remembering that not long afore they had held the feast of the tabernacles, when as they wandered in the mountains and dens like beasts. Therefore they bare branches and fair boughs and palms also, and sang psalms unto him that had given them good success in cleansing his place. They ordained also by a common statute and decree that every year those days should be kept with the whole nation of the Jews.
So again, that's a new culture, a new time, new season of worship and celebration. And it's in the context of going against, the Hellenes. Now, there's not going to be a time of physical struggle, like that. There's not going to be a time of physical struggle for us, Lord willing. It's going to be a peaceful one for us. But there are going to be them that are tried. But we are to remain spiritual. Whether the adversary is getting physical with us, we're to remain spiritual. That's the whole part of the battle. The only flesh we're trying to battle is ourselves. Flesh versus spirit. That's the true battle. Elder Apostle Gabar said that's the biggest battle in this war. Yourself.
Verse 9. And this was the end of Antiochus, called Epiphanes. Now will we declare the acts of Antiochus Eupat, or was the son of this wicked man, gathering briefly the calamities of the wars. So when he was come to the crown, he set one Lysias over the affairs of his realm and appointed him chief governor of Seleucia and Phoenice. For Ptolemaeus, that was called Macron, choosing rather to do justice unto the Jews for the wrong that had been done unto them, endeavoured to continue peace with them.
So you had different levels of severity, of the rulership over the Jews or the Israelites, which a lot of them were Judah.
Verse 13, whereupon being accused of the king's friends before Eupator and called traitor at every word because he had left Cyprus, that Philometor had committed unto him and departed to Antiochus Epiphanes, and seeing that he was in no honourable place, he was so discouraged that he poisoned himself and died. But when Georgius was governor of the wholes, he hired soldiers and nourished war continually with the Jews.
So again, you had different levels of severity. And the apostles speak on that about Alexander the Great as well. He wasn't too harsh. There's is it from Josephus? It talks about the documents the sort of attitude Alexander had. Antiochus Epiphanes, A4 name there, he was the most brutal, the most wicked, that wicked root. And that's the prophecy in Daniel 8. Is it Daniel 8? Before I get that, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 1. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Yahushua HaMashiach, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that the day of Hamashiach is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, shewing himself that he is God. Right, so that day, that falling away that it's referring to, is when the Romans did, a very similar thing in defiling the temple, defiling the people, putting them into slavery, putting them into brutal conditions, brutish conditions, inhumanely. But that falling away had to come because it was necessary. It was a necessary portion and part of the struggle, the struggle that Jake and ultimately the elect would have to go through before tasting that kingdom. Why? Due to our transgressions, due to our sins. We always go in on the other nations, which is true, and they will get the judgment, but there's no way we would have been able to fall down if we'd been on point. So it starts at home. What does it say? The judgment starts at the house of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua.
Second Maccabees chapter 10 and verse 14. But when Georgius was governor of the wholes, he hired soldiers and nourished war continually with the Jews. And therewithal the Idumeans, having gotten into their hands the most commodious wholes, kept the Jews occupied, and receiving those that were banished from Jerusalem, they went about to nourish war. Then they that were with Maccabeus made supplication and besought God that he would be their helper, and so they ran with violence upon the strongholds of the Idumeans, and assaulting them strongly, they won the holds and kept off all that fought upon the wall, and slew all that fell into their hands, and killed no fewer than 20,000. And because certain who were no less than 9,000 were fled together into two very strong castles, having all manner of things convenient to sustain the siege, Maccabeus left Simon and Joseph and Zacchaeus also, and them that were with him, who were enough to besiege them, and departed himself unto those places which more needed his help. Now they that were with Simon, beingled with covetousness, were persuaded for money through certain of those that were in the castle, and took 70,000 drachms, and let some of them escape.
It's the type of money, and that's what does it say about it? There's no much. What does it say? There's no more wicked thing than a covetous man. Paraphrasing that, and also the love of money is the root of all evil. Not money. There's nothing wrong with money. When you love it, when you start worship it like an idol, then it becomes a problem. Because you're willing to depart with your moral compass, your moral code, and violate that in, attainment for this money. So that's why it can become an issue, or it does become an issue when you love it. Money itself, the scriptures on it. Money is a defense. Money answers all things. then the love of money is the root of all evil.
Verse 21, but when it was told Maccabeus what was done, he called the governors of the people together and accused those men that they had sold their brethren for money and set their enemies free to fight against them. So he slew those that were found traitors and immediately took the 2 castles. And having good success with his weapons and all things, he took in hand and slew in the 2 holds more than 20,000. Now Timotheus, whom the Jews had overcome before, when he had gathered a great multitude of foreign forces and horses out of Asia, not a few, came as though he would take Jewry by force of arms. But when he drew near, they that were with Maccabeus turned themselves to pray unto the Most High and sprinkled earth upon their heads and girded their loins with sackcloth.
Yeah, so that's a custom of mourning. You'll see that in Revelation, the 18th chapter, what we call the credits of Babylon. And when it's done, them casting dust upon their heads. I think it's in the 18th chapter. And I believe it's where the destruction is. And that's a common custom of mourning, loss and death.
And also in Revelation chapter 11, about the 2 witnesses, the 2 kingdoms prophesying in sackcloth for 350 years. Yeah.
Obviously, sackcloth is a lower state. So you've got that literally, but then you've also got the spiritual part of it, of us going into that lower state of chattel slavery for about a period of 350 years. 3.5 years, it says it in some terms. Time. 2 times and time and dividing of time.
Verse 26, and fell down at the foot of the altar and besought him to be merciful to them and to be an enemy to their enemies and an adversary to their adversaries, as the Lord declareth. So after the prayer they took their weapons and went on further from the city, and when they drew near to their enemies they kept by themselves. Now the sun being newly risen, they joined both together, the one part having together with their virtue, their refuge also unto the Lord for a pledge of their success and victory. The other side making their rage leader of their battle. When the battle waxed strong, there appeared unto the enemies from heaven 5 comely men upon horses with bridles of gold, and 2 of them led the Jews.
If you want, we can pause right there because it's not really to get into all the detail, but the acts of Antiochus, when they go into that 2nd Maccabees 2 or 1st Maccabees 2, we'll start at the point of how did it come to be, the feast of dedication, and we'll get into what's the specifics. That was the triumph. What was the specifics? What led to that? And why you grabbed that? Got the book of John, chapter 10. Together. The book of St. John, chapter 10, and verse 22, which reads, and it was at Jerusalem the feast of dedication, and it was winter, and Yahushua walked in the temple of Solomon's porch. So you see that at winter time. Where's that from? Where did that custom arise from? The temple's always been important. So now that elect remnant is as that temple. It talks about an altar would be made unto the Lord in Egypt. Where one of the 5 cities should speak the language of Canaan. Or what's the language of Canaan? The land of Canaan is what was taken over by the children of Israel. So the language of Canaan is what the language of the children of Israel, Hebrew, and that's where you have that new revival of the ancient Hebrew language in spiritual Southern, spiritual Egypt, Babylon the Great. The altar being built is what the people, the temple, a living sacrifice, as we're required to be. So it can just start when Alexander takes power and just flow from wherever.
The 1st Maccabees chapter 2.
So the apostles going to said a bit there, the certain rulers were more harsh, some wanted everlasting war, some of them were sort of trying to chill it down, they saw what was going on, they wanted peace with the Jews, but ultimately it happened how it happened, and it was always going to lead to the great Hellenistic empire and the far-reaching consequence that, eventually Israel would fall away in, the time the Romans came about, when Hellenistic influence was still there. That's why you have, again, there's neither Jew nor Greeks. But why is that written in the book of Romans? Because it was deep, it went deep.
First Maccabees chapter 2 verse 1. In those days arose Matthias the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest, the sons of Joarib from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. And he had 5 sons, Johanan called Cadiz, Simon called Pasai, Judas who was called Maccabeus, Eleazar called Avaran, and Jonathan whose surname was Aphus. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, "Woe is me! Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and of the holy city, and to dwell there when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers? Her temple is become as a man without glory. The glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. The infants are slain in the streets, her young men with the sword of the enemy."
Remember that temple prostitutes? The abomination of desolation this time was they sacrificing a pig, a swine, unto Zeus. You're not meant to sacrifice swine at all as a Jew, as an Israelite. That's against our law. We touch it, it's a sin unto us. So they were doing that and worshipping other gods. So they were doing like 2-3 grave sins, all at once. And this isn't a people that were in captivity and scattered and among these people. These are people that were really living it among, Israel among Israel, keeping the commandments. So that was a complete, culture shock to say the least. It was abomination.
Verse 9, her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity, her infants are slain in the streets, her young men with the sword of the enemy. What nation hath not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? All her ornaments are taken away. Of a free woman she is become a bondslave. And behold, our sanctuary, even our beauty, and our glory is laid waste, and the Gentiles have profaned it.
And you can see again similar things happening. The Ark of Titus, they have the menorah, don't they? The gold menorah being taken away. So there's always been, there's many similarities. It's the same biblical nation, but there's many similarities in these two abominations of desolations. Completely despoiling Israel.
Verse 13, to what end therefore shall we live any longer? Then Matthias and his sons rent their clothes and put on sackcloth and mourned very sore. In the meanwhile, the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city of Modin to make them sacrifice. And when many of Israel came unto them, Matthias also and his sons came together. Then answered the king's officers and said to Matthias on this wise, you are a ruler and an honourable and great man in the city, and strengthened with sons and brethren. Now therefore come you first, and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done. Yea, and the men of Judah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem, so shall you and your house be in the number of the king's friends.
Salaki, there was a bill of Antiochus that he wrote that all should become one people. We'll all be the same people, we'll all be Greeks, and we'll all do the same things. But for us to do that, we would have to put away our laws, put away our culture, and join into his. So it sounds like a good, enticing, let's all be one, let's all be friends, let's all get along. But really they're saying, put away and abandon your ways and come and join into our ways. It's not going to be beneficial.
And you and your children shall be honoured with silver and gold and many rewards. Verse 19, then Matthias answered and spake with a loud voice, though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him and fall away every one from the religion of their fathers and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers. God forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's words, to go from our religion either on the right hand or the left.
See, and that's proof we do have a quote-unquote religion. Obviously we're against so-called religion, the context of these other philosophies and doctrines that go against our beliefs. But ultimately, we do have a religion, if you want to define it like that.
Verse 23. Now when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar, which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment. Which thing when Messiah saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled, neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar. Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down. Thus dealt he zealously for the law of God, like as Phinehas did unto Zambri the son of Salom. And Matthias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, Whosoever is zealous of the law, and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me. So he and his sons fled into the mountains, and left all that ever they had in the city. Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there.
And spiritually, that's the mindset to have. Leaving what is of this society and maintaining the true, realization that we're only going to have, this law. When we die, we're not going to be able to take them possessions. What you're going to be able to take? Wisdom. And Lord willing, we don't die. There's some men that will not die. Some men that we shall not all sleep, we shall all be changed.
Verse 29, Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there, both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them. Now when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of David, that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down into the secret places of the wilderness, they pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day. And they said unto them, Let that which you have done hitherto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and you shall live. But they said, We will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day. So then they gave them the battle with all speed. Howbeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they lay hid, but said, Let us die in all our innocency. Heaven and earth shall testify for us that you put us to death wrongfully. So they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their wives and children and their cattle to the number of 1,000 people.
Right, so they just slaughtered Israel trying to keep the Sabbath, and it was a purpose in Israel's mind at that point to say, well, let's just keep the Sabbath, let's remain blameless, let's not pick up any stones, anything like that, let's not do any vigorous work, and we'll see, the heaven will testify against you, for the murder of us that we were doing innocently. And so that was the initial, mind frame of them, but it goes on.
39. Now when Matthias and his friends understood hereof, they mourned for them right sore, and of them said to another, If we all do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth. At that time therefore they decree, saying, Whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against him, neither will we all die, or we die all, as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places. Then came there unto him a company of Assyrians, who were mighty men of Israel, even all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the law. Also all they that fled for persecution joined themselves unto them, and were a stay unto them. So they joined their forces and smote sinful men in their anger, and wicked men in their wrath, but the rest fled to the heathen for succor.
These things, remember, things written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. So what we're looking at now is, remember, there's a time coming called Jacob's trouble. Daniel 12 will tell you about that. Jeremiah 30 will tell you about that. A day and a time that there's never been. Since there was a nation, since the Lord made a nation at the same time as this, there will be no similar time as horrific. So slavery, Hellenization, Antiochus Epiphanes, a lot of great horrific events that have happened to Jake. It's going to be nothing like that, unimaginable. So we need to remember, well, the same way, the Lord delivered Jake in past times, from times that looked like they're undeliverable from. You have to remember with man, it may be impossible. With the Most High, all things are possible. You need to put it in that context, in the context of pursuing the covenants. You see what happened, and you see what happens. No, the Lord never forsakes a man, that's doing right by him. It's all about that election. We have to make it our calling election sure. I got everything. I just got up in the pocket for me.
Yeah, I got. Yes. Verse 45. Then Matthias and his friends were round about and pulled down the altars, and what children soever they found within the coast of Israel uncircumcised, those they circumcised valiantly. They pursued also after the proud men, and the work prospered in their hand. So they recovered the law out of the hand of the Gentiles and out of the hand of kings, neither suffered they the sinner to triumph. Now when the time drew near that Matthias should die, he said unto his sons, now hath pride and rebuke gotten strength, and the time of destruction and the wrath of indignation. Now therefore, my sons, be you zealous for the law, and give your lives for the covenant of your fathers. Call to remembrance what acts our fathers did in their time, so shall you receive great honour and an everlasting name. Was not Abraham found faithful in temptation, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness? Joseph in the time of his distress kept the commandment, and was made Lord of Egypt. Phinehas our father, in being zealous and fervent, obtained the covenant of an everlasting priesthood. Yahushua, fulfilling the word, was made a judge in Israel. Caleb, for bearing witness before the congregation, received the heritage of the land. David, for being merciful, possessed the throne of an everlasting kingdom. Elias, for being zealous and fervent for the law, was taken up into heaven. And Ananias, Azarias, and Mishael, by believing, were saved out of the flame.
That would be Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That would be the Babylonian names. So it's really there's a Hellenized form of the Hebraic names in there. Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael.
60. Daniel, for his innocency, was delivered from the mouth of lions. And thus consider you throughout all ages, that none that put their trust in him shall be overcome.
Yeah, so it's even telling you, looking back for a time in the future, it's even telling you, none of you that put your trust in the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, are going to be confounded. Simple like that. The Lord's got his election, so then maybe, like it speaks on, many shall say, well, I've cast out devils in your name, and the Lord's going to say, depart from me, I never knew you, works of iniquity. For those that are genuinely, sincerely serving the Heavenly Father, you'll look out for them. And he's saying, you should be hungry, but my servant will eat. You should be thirsty, but my servant will drink. Because the Lord's going to look out and provide for his.
Verse 62. Fear not then the words of a sinful man, for his glory shall be dung and worms. Today he shall be lifted up, and tomorrow he shall not be found, because he is returned unto his dust, and his thought is come to nothing.
Sirach 9:11. Envy not the glory of the sinner, for thou knowest not what shall be his end.
Verse 64. Wherefore you, my sons, be valiant and show yourselves men in the behalf of the law, for by it shall you obtain glory. And behold, I know that your brother Simon is a man of counsel. Give ear unto him always, he shall be a father unto you. As for Judas Maccabeus, he has been mighty and strong even from his youth up. Let him be your captain, and fight the battle of the people. Take also unto you all those that observe the law, and avenge you the wrong of your people. Recompense fully the heathen, and take heed to the commandments of the law. So he blessed them, and was gathered to his fathers. And he died in the 146th year, and his sons buried him in the sepulchres of the fathers of Modin, and all Israel made great lamentation for him. Let's see on that chapter.
We're going to hit 2 Maccabees 2. And in all these stories I say loosely, I don't mean it like it didn't happen. account, if you like, remembering what was done. You have to really get into it as well. Words on a page, they have to be living, they're living water. So you have to imagine it. Being in a time of, we often make that comparison to ancient Egypt, to Babylon the Great. How no one thinks Babylon the Great is going to go down if they're outside the knowledge. Fair enough, there's financial crisis and stuff like this, but no one ever thought 10, 15, 20 years ago, outside of the faith, that it would be going down or circling the drain at least. The same fear that's in people right now of Babylon the Great, that was the same fear in them regarding Egypt, Nineveh, Assyria, especially Assyria.
Alright, 2 Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 1. It is also found in the records that Jeremiah, or Jeremy the prophet, commanded them that were carried away to take of the fire as it had been signified, and how that the prophet, having given them the law, charged them not to forget the commandments of the Lord, and that they should not err or error in their minds when they see images of silver and gold with their ornaments. And with other such speeches exhorted he them that the law should not depart from their hearts, meaning minds. It was also contained in the same writing that the prophet, being warned of Yahweh, commanded the tabernacle and the ark to go with him as he went forth into the mountain where Moses climbed up and saw the heritage of Yahweh.
So you see Salafia, how in their time of them in the moment, even them are looking back on historical moments. We've always drawn from it. We've always drawn great strength and how do you say, desire to serve the Heavenly Father, looking at what He's done to our forefathers before us.
And when Jeremy came thither, he found a hollow cave, wherein he laid the tabernacle and the ark and the altar of incense, and so stopped the door. And some of those that followed him came to mark the way, but they could not find it. Which when Jeremy perceived, he blamed them, saying, As for that place, it shall be unknown until the time that Yahweh gather his people again together, and receive them unto mercy. Then shall the Lord show them these things, and the glory of the Lord shall appear. And the cloud also, as it was showed unto Moses, and as when Solomon desired that the place might be honourably sanctified. It was also declared that he, being wise, offered the sacrifice of dedication and of the finishing of the temple. And as when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the sacrifices, even so prayed Solomon also, and the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offerings.
That's like spiritual power. People don't want to mock and scoff at spiritual power. But do you believe in these scriptures that you're reading? Do you believe in what happened with our forefathers? Is it all symbolic? Like that kind of one body says, it's just folly, complete folly. The miracles of Yahushua curing blindness, well, how is that spiritual? Because the blind man recognized who Yahushua was spiritually, so he wasn't spiritually blind. But then there's physical mud formed, clay formed, put in his eyes, and he was cured of his physical blindness. Well, how do you spiritualize that if you spiritually recognize who the Messiah was? You have to be immersed in this. You have to become addicted to this.
Oh yeah, verse 11. And Moses said, because the sin offering was not to be eaten, it was consumed. So Solomon kept those 8 days. The same things also were reported in the writings and commentaries of Nehemiah, and how he, founding a library, gathered together the acts of the kings and the prophets, and of David, and the epistles of the kings concerning the holy gifts. In like manner also Judas gathered together all those things that were lost by reason of the war he had, and they remain with us. Wherefore, if you have need thereof, send some to fetch them unto you. Whereas we then are about to celebrate the purification we have written unto you, and you shall do well if you keep the same days. We hope also that the Most High that delivered all his people and gave them all an heritage in the kingdom and the priesthood and the sanctuary, as he promised in the law, will shortly have mercy upon us and gather us together out of every land under heaven into the holy place. For he hath delivered us out of the great troubles and hath purified the place. Now as concerning Judas Maccabeus and his brethren, and the purification of the great temple and the dedication of the altar, and the wars against Antiochus Epiphanes, and Eupat or his son, and the manifest signs that came from heaven unto those that behaved themselves manfully to their honour for Judaism, so that being but a few, they overcame the whole country and chased barbarous multitudes.
Yeah, and what's that symbolic for? The remnant. Being a very few. Not even Israel at this point keeps the commandments. That was a valiant few of Israel that were zealous for it. But generally Israel was keeping it. Israel knew who they were. So now it's an intensified, it's an amplified situation. The adversary is going to come stronger, and we've been further detached from what was being ours, but the Lord's bringing it back through His Holy Spirit. This is the gospel.
Verse 21. And the manifest signs that came from heaven unto those that behaved themselves manfully to their honour for Judaism, so that being a few, they overcame the whole country and chased barbarous multitudes, and recovered again the temple renowned all the world over, and freed the city, and upheld the laws which were going down, the Lord being gracious unto them with all favour. All these things I say, being declared by Jason of Cyrene in 5 books, we will essay to abridge in 1 volume. For considering the infinite number and the difficulty which they find that desire to look into the narrations of the story, for the variety of the matter, we have been careful that they that will read may have delight, and that they that are desirous to commit to memory might have ease, and that all into whose hands it comes might have profit. Therefore, to us that have taken upon us this painful labour of abridging, it was not easy, but a matter of sweat and watching. Even as it is no ease unto him that prepareth a banquet, and seeketh the benefit of others, yet for the pleasuring of many we will undertake gladly this great pains, leaving to the author the exact handling of every particular, and labouring to follow the rules of an abridgment. For as the master builder of a new house must care for the whole building, but he that undertaketh to set it out and paint it must seek out fit things for the adorning thereof, even so I think it is with us. To stand upon every point and go over things at large, and to be curious in particulars, belongeth to the first author of the story. But to use brevity and avoid much labouring of the work is to be granted to him that will make an abridgment. Here then will we begin the story, only adding thus much to that which hath been said, that it is a foolish thing to make a long prologue and to be short in the story itself. That's it on that chapter.
And then it says talks about a building. Know the foundation can any man lay, which is already laid, and that is Hammashah. So there it is, the chief cornerstone. It's integral, and you can see throughout this, the books of wisdom, the history books, Yahushua fingerprint upon it all. They're bringing in of certain concepts. What was said. It's like it truly is the Heavenly Father is the ultimate, director, the ultimate architect. Now I reckon we should hit 1 Maccabees chapter 2, in terms of going into what actually happened. Or is it's the latter portion of 1 Maccabees 1, and then we can go into 2 for sure.
Book of 1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws, so all the heathen agreed, according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath.
So you didn't even have to get physical for a lot of J. You just had to entice you. Say, oh look, come and be like us, and that's enough. Enticed, seduced.
Verse 44. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah that they should follow the strange laws of the land and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh, which is pork, and unclean beasts.
You know, chapels of idols, what do you call the main the main church Christianity key? They call it a chapel. What do they have in their carved image? You know, Mary, you know, Jesus, so called. You know, but they're what idols? Carved images. Chapels of idols is literally what they are. And what do they eat up in there? You know, whether it's in the premises or people be eating before they're going afterwards. You know, pork, especially in the Jake church. You know, they'll feed you pork all day, man. You see, that's a Hellenistic church. Merely a prop is the scriptures for them.
Verse 48, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die.
There it is. You know, what we told, to remember the Sabbath day. You know, but these are talking about to make us forget the ordinances. So it's a concerted effort. You know, it's written in Judith, paraphrasing, that these are the nations know if they stop us worshipping our power, that's how they can seize control and rulership over us. You know, simple like that. So these are the things that, you know, the Maccabees that they're printing, you know, Judas Maccabees and the whole group were fighting against. You know, and they were physically fighting. Now it's a time of spiritual warfare, to spiritually fight. You know, not keeping these, you know, holy days, not worshipping, you know, Christmas, or celebrating, keeping it, acknowledging it. Not going off to say the word, you know, but unless it's in the context of teaching it, you know, something like that. What business do we have around it? What business do we have to do with it?
2 Maccabees chapter 6 verse 4, but the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles. These are, you know, actual Gentiles, the other nations, who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that brought in things that were not lawful.
So when you're dealing with, you know, it talks about dealing with a harlot in the New Scriptures, New Testament, sorry, it's dealing with this temple prostitution, you know, or temple harlotry, which they were having sex unto the gods in the name of the gods.
So I think there was counting numbers when there was an individual that was thrust through with a spear for having
the Midianite.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep. And why? Because they were going unto the gods. But Moses would be a hypocrite if he did that because she was of another nation. You know, it's about the manner of. It always goes back to serving the Heavenly Father. You know, because Moses had an Ethiopian, and he himself had a Midianite wife, I believe. But he wasn't worshipping their gods.
Verse 5, 2 Maccabees chapter 6 verse 5, the altar also was filled with profane things which the law forbiddeth. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew.
So if you're in Greece, you're not allowed to call yourself a Jew. You're not allowed to behave like a Jew. What do you do? Oh, I'm a Greek. You know, and that was the start of it. And then if you say, no, I'm a Jew, and then they kill you, and then they look at the next guy stood next to you, you ask them, well, what are you? Are you a Jew or are you a Greek? You know, 9 times out of 10, you know, it's going to put a fear in a man, you know, especially on the scale they were doing it. And it did. You know, so there was only a remnant that was saying, no, I'm an Israelite, I'm going to keep that. You know, and they were Maccabees, they were with the Maccabees. But of that time, you know, the great majority of Israel was getting Hellenized, getting told, well, you might even say, no, I'm a Jew, I'm an Israelite, I want to keep it like that. You know, and then he might come around and said, well, no, you know, you're a Greek. He said, no, I'm not. Well, then they kill you. Then what are your family going to say? Oh, I'm a Greek. You know, that's how they do it. They ruled with the sword.
Back to 1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 49. To the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances, and whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. In the self-same manner wrote to his whole kingdom and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city. The many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, everyone that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for secure. Now the 15th day of this month, Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and built idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, they burnt them with fire.
Meaning they ripped up the Torah, they ripped up the scriptures, the prophets, the epistles, the books of wisdom. They were ripping them up and burning them. Now that was how much they were staunchly opposed to Jake's existence. You have to remember, this isn't just a quote-unquote religion. This is a culture. This is a lifestyle. This is a people. That's like effectively tearing up a country's constitution. Because this is how groups operate in them times.
57. And wheresoever was found with any book of the testament, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death. Thus did they, by their authority, unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now the 25th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which is upon the altar of Yahweh. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. They hanged their infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved, and confirmed themselves not to eat any unclean thing.
See, so there were people that were still like, no, I'm not doing this. They did put a fear again in a lot of people as well. If you've just seen this sister, just be put to death and the infant hanged around the neck for circumcising a child, some people it's going to think, well, right, I'm not doing that. So they were able to catch some people by seduction and other people through fear, to join to the Hellenistic ways, teach their children it. Their children taught their children it. And that's why you have, again, Jews nor Greeks in the book of Romans where it's written like that. You have to understand the history to understand the mysteries, the apostles say.
Verse 63. Wherefore they chose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died, and there was very great wrath upon Israel. That's right, that's it, man. That's it. Okay.
The book of Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 1. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, saying, Thus speaketh Yahweh, power of Israel, saying, Write thee all the words that I have spoken unto thee in a book. For lo, the days come, saith Yahweh, that I will bring again the captivity of my people, Israel and Judah, saith Yahweh, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. And these are the words that Yahweh spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. For thus saith Yahweh, We have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Now, see, does a man give birth? No. It says, Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith Yahweh of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him, for they shall serve Yahweh their power, and David their king, whom I will raise up to them. And that's a very brief synopsis on the time from now until the kingdom. It's going to get sticky, it's going to get rough. Bear Jake, persecute, pressure, killed even some of them. It talks about them in Revelation, the 20th chapter, them will have to be beheaded for the witness. You go into the Greek word, it's the word martyr. That's where you get the idea of a martyr religiously. Being killed or being a witness. Really, it just means witness. It's very much in the context of being killed. Some people will be killed for the faith of Yahweh Shai. That's Jacob's trouble, a time of great persecution upon all Israel. But in the end, they'll serve David, their king, and Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai.
Hebrews chapter 1, verse 1. Yahweh, who at sundry times and in divers manners, meaning in different ways, spoke in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds, plural, right? Verse 3, who being the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person, and upholding all things by the word of his power, when he had by himself purged our sins, sat down on the right hand of the majesty on high, being made so much better than the angels, and he hath by inheritance obtained a more excellent name than they. That's right. And Yahushua was crucified in his time frame 2 days ago, which a day to the Lord is 1,000 years to us. That was 2,000 years ago.
Even less.
Yeah.
Just under. So you imagine if someone does you wrong in this world, it's always a thing of get back, revenge. If someone at work cusses you out, 2 days later you're still thinking about that, man. But then if you run 2,000 years, all right, maybe you would have forgotten generations and generations on. So imagine you put to death the Lord's Son. You put to death the Lord's Son, crucified him, brutally, humiliated, mocking, scoffing. Well, think about the wrath that the Heavenly Father's got. And that's for the Romans that did it, and a lot of Jacob was complicit in it, and even said, give us a thief instead. Give us Barabbas. That's what you chose. You chose Barabbas over Hamashiach. But that's Jacob. That's Jake for you.
Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, the saints of the Israelites. Psalms 50 and 5 and Psalm 148 verse 14 tells you that. And think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until the time and times and the dividing of time. This devil, he tries to change, times and laws. Daylight saving time, things like that. Go by his Gregorian calendar and things like that.
But really, it can never change times. That's why it's written. Seek to change times when the Lord made his clock in the sky, the greater light, the lesser light, the stars, to tell the time. And then the signs and the laws, seek to change times and laws. Well, the law, it tells you in Baruch, the 4th chapter, endureth forever. This is the book of the Lord, the commandments of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, which endureth forever. So the time can't change, the laws can't change. So what he's trying to seek to change times and laws, but he can't do it. It's undoable. That's why his power is in deception. His power, he could never force anyone's hand, to say, eat of this. What did he have to do? He had to use deception, snakery, slippery, subtile, serpentry. That's his power. The sword, serpentry,
and slander.
What do you mean?
Lies.
Diabolos. Diabolic or devil. Diabol. Dia means across, and bolos goes into slandering. So slandering across, talking across, throwing across. So they're throwing across slander. That's his power. He doesn't operate in truth. He deceives people into believing an idea or something. That's the devil's power. That's why it says the truth shall make you free. Why? Because you're not ensnared by the serpentry.
Verse 26, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, meaning the Israelites, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him.
The people of the saints as well. It didn't give you an ambiguous, the congregation, the people of the saints. When it talks about people, a people group, and I'm Yah, my people. Well, who are they? The Lord came to save his people from their sins. The prophets talked about this, my people, my people, my people, the people of Israel, the God of Israel, his people Israel. All through the scriptures, the people of the saints, as the brother said, Psalm 50 and 5, Psalm 148 and 14, do your homework, do your research. Who are the saints? Israel. The people of the saints means the kingdom will be given to Israel forever.
Verse 28, hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, And my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. That's right.
So that's the thing about prophecy, man. It was written aforetime for our learning. Same way we read accounts, history, stories. We think, well, how can we apply it to these times? I think we'll have to probably wrap it up early if the rain gets heavy like this. I'll get that. The time of Jacob's trouble is a serious time to be, reflecting on. Take some time out in your day. Think about how dire it's going to get. Make sure you're prioritizing the right things.
This is Luke chapter 22, verse 31. And the Lord Yahushua said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for you, that your faith fail not. And when you are converted, strengthen your brethren. Right, so Satan is always on the prowl to get us out, man. He's working on overdrive to try and sift us out of the truth.
On overdrive, doing overtime.
That's right. Because he turns up on the left hand side, we turn up on the right hand side, man. Remain spiritual and be sober minded, clear minded, spiritually, mentally. So,
we've got Daniel 12:1, and this is reference to what I read in Jeremiah the 30th chapter. It says, And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was, since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Right, so everyone that's written in the book of life that Revelation speaks on, everyone that's found written in that book, they're the ones that will make it out. So it says the Lord made this world for many, but the world to come for a few. In terms of the benefits, the rulership package. Now you have holiday packages. Well, he picked a rulership package, but it's got its downfalls as well, pros and cons. I'd rather struggle now, in this man's world, fiat currency defiled, debased, and Lord willing, inherit what there is promised to the Lord. That's the right way to go about it.
Tobit chapter 14 verse 9. But keep you the law and the commandments, and show yourself merciful and just, that it may go well with you. That's right. Tobit was known for giving alms, things like that. Even when you read from the beginning of the chapter, Tobit chapter 14 verse 1. So Tobit made an end of praising Yahweh, and he was 50 years old when he lost his sight, so he became blind, which was restored to him after 8 years. And he gave alms, and he increased in the fear of the Lord power Yahweh, and praised him. And when he was very aged, he called his son and the 6 sons of his sons, and said to him, My son, take your children, for behold, I am aged, being old, and I'm ready to depart out of this life. Go into Media or Mediah, my son, for I surely believe those things which Jonah the prophet spoke of Nineveh, that it shall be overthrown, and that for a time peace shall rather be in Media, and that our brethren shall lie scattered in the earth from that good land. And Jerusalem shall be desolate, and the house of Yahweh in it shall be burned, and shall be desolate for a time. And that again Yahweh will have mercy on them, and bring them again into the land where they shall build a temple, but not like to the first, until the time of the age be fulfilled. And afterward they shall return from all places of their captivity, and build up Jerusalem gloriously, and the house of Yahweh shall be built in it forever, with a glorious building, as the prophets have spoken thereof. And the third temple, is being built back spiritually. Okay, like in the days of old, we did have the physical temple. Okay.
I was just about to pass comment on how integral the temple is. It's every time you read about our captivity, more time you're going to read about the temple being brought back as well, because that was an integral part to our culture, our ways of worship, the sacrifice. Right now our bodies are as a temple, and we're to give that living sacrifice. That is the duty.
Verse 6, And all nations shall turn and fear Adawan Yahweh power truly, and shall bury their idols. So shall all nations praise The Lord and his people shall confess Yahweh, and the Lord shall exalt his people, and all those which love Adawan Yahweh power in truth and justice shall rejoice, showing mercy to our brethren.
It shows about who his people are, and it talks about the other people in contrast. But we can back that up about that being nations again. Like it said, the people of the saints. It says, for the gods of the nations, Hagawayam, are idols, but Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai made the heavens. Right, so other nations were given idols, false gods, whereas Israel was given the God of Israel. That's what it's called, the God of Israel.
Verse 8. And now my son, depart out of Nineveh, because that those things which the prophet Jonah spoke shall surely come to pass. Into verse 10. And bury me decently, and your mother with me, but tarry no longer at Nineveh. Remember, my son, how a man handled a Kairos that brought him up, how out of light he brought him into darkness, and how he rewarded him again. Yet Achahias was saved, but the other had his reward. But he went down into darkness, and Manasseh gave alms and escaped the snares of death which they had set for him. But a man fell into the snare and perished. Right. Wherefore now, my sons, consider what alms doeth, and how righteousness doth deliver. And charity covers a multitude of sins.
It doesn't mean you can just be wicked and have charity to cover it, but it absolutely, it plays a part. We all slip up. Because there was that, I don't know if you've ever seen that guy, what's it called now? Hatazak. He used to teach, Tribe of Judah teach. I don't know if you've looked at that. He was saying how Tobit's a false book, I believe. I remember him going into that and saying, well, arms delivered from death. He was doing a rebut, but people saying arms delivered from death is a wicked doctrine. It's like, well, be righteousness. Our righteousness is a filthy rag. But what's delivering from death? Our faith in the blood of Yahweh Shai, which ultimately is righteousness. So does righteousness deliver from death? Yes. It doesn't mean, you give 50p to a homeless man, then a bank robbery of 3 million you did the week prior is abrogated. Don't mean that. But you got to put things in the context. Jacob's to be, too, extreme. Not extreme in diligence, not extreme in obedience to the Lord, but extreme in, the wrong ways.
Tobit chapter 14 and verse 11. And carrying on, how unrighteousness doth deliver. When he had said these things, he gave up the ghost in the bed, being 108 and 50 years old, and he buried him honourably. And when Anna his mother was dead, he buried her with his father. But Tobias departed with his wife and children to Ecbatane, to Raguel, his father-in-law, where he became old with honour, and buried his father and mother-in-law honourably. And he inherited their substance, and his father Tobit's a lot of wealth. And he died at Ecbatane in Media, being 107 and 20 years old. Before he died, he heard of the destruction of Nineveh, which was taken by Nebuchadnezzar and Assuerus. And before his death, he rejoiced over Nineveh.
And that Media there is Madai. When you read about the Persian Median Empire, it's dealing with that province there. It's got to get sticky. That's the main thing. Looking at what happened in the time of Hellenization, of great persecution. It says, all that live godly in Yahweh Shai HaMashiach shall suffer persecution. That's a verb of certainty. I'm not saying might. Might suffer persecution. It's a possibility. There's a heightened chance. It says will, shall. There's going to be levels to it. There's going to be different levels. Someone might go through something where you'd be like, oh, I could never go through that. But it's written, the Lord will never give a man more than he's able to bear. With always will, with the temptation, make a way to escape. Don't be drawn out by your lust. Right? Revelation chapter 2 and verse 10. I think I'll wrap it because it's going to get too wet. Revelation 2 and 10 says, "Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that you may be tried, and you shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I'll give thee a crown of life." Revelation 3 and 10 says, "Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth."
The book of Zechariah chapter 12 verse 8. In that day shall Ha'adawan Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as God, as the angel of Ha'adawan Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai before them. Verse 9, and it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem.
So the meek, the timid, the quiet brother is going to be as mighty as David, and the others should be as the Most High, or should be as Elohim, as angels, powerful. And one angel, can do a hell of a lot of damage, So is that the last one?
Verse 10, and I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications, and they shall look upon me, whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him, as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in his bitterness for him, as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn.
So the Heavenly Father has great, what's the word, indignation, righteous anger, upon the world, Jake included. So stay diligent, stay vigilant, keep prayed up, man.
Okay.
We've got the final.
Alright, Judah chapter 8, verse 14. For you cannot find the depth of the heart of man, neither can you perceive the things that he thinketh. Then how can you search out Yahweh, that has made all these things, and know his mind, or comprehend his purpose? Nay, my brethren, provoke not the Lord Yahweh our power to anger. Judith chapter 16 verse 17. Woe to the nation that rise up against my kindred, the Lord Almighty will take vengeance of them in the day of judgment, in putting fire and worms in their flesh, and they shall feel them and weep forever.
Come on. So all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders, the great millstone that rule well, laboring this word in doctrine. Shalom to the elect. Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.